just wanted to share some teachings about conquest of anger. Of course, this is a lifelong path to overcome anger. Today, just giving some reflections, some teachings about anger, what anger is, what is the cause of anger, and some tools that we can implement in our life in order to overcome that emotion that, if it's not handled consciously, is an inner enemy. So there's a little story about a samurai, a fighter, a samurai, and he had a teacher, a spiritual teacher. He was his, teacher of martial arts, but also a spiritual teacher for him. And then someday, that young samurai asked his teacher, what is the difference between heaven and hell? Actually, show me how is hell, and also show me how is heaven. And the moment the teacher hears that request, he starts to insult the samurai. And he tells him, you are a fool, you're a weakling, what are you? And then the samurai takes his sword and attacks the teacher. And then attacks the teacher. And then the teacher says, now you're in hell. And at that moment, the samurai falls at the feet of the teacher. Oh, forgive me, teacher. And some tears come from his eyes. I'm sorry, please forgive me. And then the teacher says, now you're in heaven. So heaven and hell are mental states. There's no eternal hell, there's no eternal heaven. These are states in our mind. But the point is, the uncontrolled mind, when we allow low emotions to take over, we go into a hellish kind of state of consciousness. And if you work with the mind and learn how to deal with those emotions, how to transform those emotions into pure love, then we can come to an inner state of heaven, of peace, of happiness. And ultimately, we can know our true self. Because the goal in yogic life, and in general the goal in life, is to know who we truly are. The yogis teach that all the suffering in our life comes from spiritual ignorance, from avidya. We don't know who we truly are. We don't know our true infinite self, unborn, immortal, in the nature of infinite bliss, infinite love, and also one with everything, one with the creation, one with God. This is our true self. We don't know it. We cannot intuitively know that true self right now. And we wrongly think that we are the body and the mind. We think we are this changeful person. So in yoga we don't say that the person is not experienced, but our mistake is that we feel that the person limits us, that we are that person. But the person is changing all the time. And we don't want that person to change usually. I mean, sometimes we want it to change, but the point is, we don't want to lose our identity. But if you feel we are the body and the mind, then of course, death is inevitable for us. So fear will be there. And then also, when we feel that we are the body and the mind, we feel we're just a limited entity, we cannot feel that happiness is who we truly are. We don't feel the happiness inside. We lose sight of that truth, and we think happiness comes from somewhere outside. From maracuja ice cream with chocolate sauce, from tiramisu, from pizza, from some relationship. Something outside will give me that happiness that I cannot feel inside. And what happens when expectations are not fulfilled? Because we have a desire now for something outside. I want an ice cream, I want tiramisu strongly, but then I go to the shop and the shop is closed, or there's a long line, and there's a beautiful lady in the line, and she just receives the last maracuja ice cream with chocolate sauce. I called before, please reserve it for me. Then I come, and the seller sells the ice cream to that person. What is the feeling that comes now in my heart? Anger, exactly. Anger is just frustrated desire, unfulfilled expectations. So the point is, and this is actually the key for all emotions in our life to deal them, I just wanted to bring that up now, is to know who we truly are. So the path of yoga is a path from not knowing who I am to knowing who I am. Kind of the Buddha. There's a story of the Buddha. The Buddha had a name, and the name was Siddhartha. And the story is that when the Buddha, which before being a Buddha was Siddhartha, did a deep meditation and then transcended all the apparent limitations about himself and realized the true nature of reality, he got the key to overcome all suffering. And he was full of bliss and full of love. So he came down from that state and he was walking down from a hill, and there came a little boy. And the little boy asked him, "What are you?" Not even "who are you?" "What are you?" Because the being was full of light. "What are you?" And then Siddhartha said, "I'm the Buddha." And what does it mean? I'm awake. That means before being awake, I was asleep. I was not awake to the reality that I truly am. So the path of yoga ultimately is a path from being asleep to becoming awake. Or from not knowing who I am, from ignorance to knowledge. Right? So this is the path of yoga. And on that path, the initial phases has a lot to do with purifying our mind. Working with the mind, transforming lower emotions into a love. All the practice in yoga have to do with purification. So, anger. What is the root cause of all anger? Ignorance. And in the Bhagavad Gita, there's a verse which says, when you wrongly think about objects, attachment for the objects arises. This comes in the spiritual scripture, Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2. When you wrongly think about objects, attachments to the objects will arise. And what is the wrong thinking about objects? When we give power to objects. When we think ignorantly, some object has the power to make me happy. The question is, do we want to be happy?
Yes.
Yes. Everybody wants to be happy? Do we agree on that?
Yes.
How much happiness do we want?
Oh,
99 units?
no.
Infinite happiness. Good. We want infinite happiness. So when the mind thinks an ice cream will give me infinite happiness, will that make sense? Is it really logic? Can a finite ice cream, why is it finite? Because it has a beginning and an end, for example. Sometimes the ice cream gives pleasure, the same ice cream sometimes gives pain. So it's limited. It's limited in time and space. Can something limited give me infinite happiness? Of course not. Happiness doesn't come from there in the first place. If it were so, if I eat one ice cream, I would be happy. If I eat a second ice cream, I should be twice as happy. Is it so? No. I'm less happy when I eat the second ice cream. Third ice cream, I get stomachache. Fourth ice cream, hospital. Fifth ice cream, graveyard. So it's just the opposite. Why does the first ice cream taste so good? What happens before the first ice cream? You don't have ice cream, you want ice cream. What happens in the mind? I want ice cream, I want ice cream, I want ice cream. The moment you want ice cream strongly, there's a desire, but you don't have. Do you feel happy?
No.
If you don't have it, but you want it, a strong desire, but you don't have it,
No.
unhappy, right? Then you eat the ice cream, first ice cream. What happens with that voice in the mind? For a short moment, it disappears, it quietens down. There's no desire for a short moment. Then you feel happiness, and you think the happiness comes from there, from the ice cream. Is it true? No, it comes from within. Now you feel the happiness which was always there, just the mind for a moment is quiet and allows you to experience that truth which is always there. It's just like in the sky, the sun is always shining, clouds come, you cannot see it, all the desires, so many thoughts. Then for a short moment, the clouds disappear, you see the sunlight, it's there, I feel happy now. And then after the ice cream, what comes into your mind? Coffee. Coffee. Pizza. Other desires come. That's the problem. The moment you feel happiness comes from things, you satisfy the desire with the idea it really comes from there, other desires come, and you get attached to them, and you get more and more emotionally dependent. So, what is the ultimate solution for overcoming all anger? To understand happiness is in me. So, coming back to the sequence of anger, you think wrongly about objects, attachment comes, you cannot stop thinking about it, from there desire is born, and when there's a desire that gets frustrated, you get angry. From desire comes anger, and then it goes on. From anger comes a mistake. Whenever you're angry and you act, you will repent. You destroy relationships, you do things that later you will regret for. So, from anger, you do a mistake, error. And you lose your memory. Potentially, we all have the memories from Satsangs, from spiritual teachings that could save us. We could act with wisdom, but they all cannot come up because of that emotion. And then ultimately, we lose our discernment and we perish. This is the teaching in the Bhagavad Gita like that. So anger really is an inner enemy, and a good way to deal with anger is to develop the opposite positive virtue of anger, and that is patience.
So, as Satyadev is explaining, it is very simple and very easy. We just have to remember our true essence, and then we won't be mad. It sounds very simple, but in reality, practically when we are outside dealing with the world, it's not so easy. We have the tendency to forget. Why? Because we have created certain samskaras or impressions in our mind to act and respond in a certain way when someone pushes our buttons. So if I have 36 years old, and in my 36 years old, I have always answered or react or reply in the same way, it means that I have created the habit of responding in a certain way, right? That's something that's reality, but the good news is that we can change that. We can create a new pattern, a new habit in our life, a new impression. That's the basic concept of Pratipaksha, which is cultivating the opposite of what I am intending to eradicate from my life. It means that moment by moment, I am going to be aware that if irritability is one of my qualities, one of the faces of my personality, then I have to cultivate patience, compassion. So every time my boss comes and he knows exactly where to push so I can start feeling the heat coming up, in that moment I am going to remember, okay, how can I respond differently this time? Because if I explode, it will just create a deeper impression in my mind. So I'm trying to change that. In that sense, I'm going to think, this time I am going to laugh. I am going to repeat mentally Om Namo Narayana, the mantra of peace. I am going to think that he is the son of someone, that he is the father of someone. Strategically start designing some mental thoughts so you can recreate those situations in a different way so that later they can become a reality. I remember one time in our house, one of us has a tendency to be forgetful and disorganized.
And it's not her.
And it's not me. And I have the tendency to be very organized and very, have neat spaces. It's weird because he's German and I'm Colombian, so in a world could be different, but in our case, it's like that. So one time we were in our home and I lost the charger of my computer. Of course, it happens and my mind says immediately, Satyadev missed my charger. So I immediately, irritability came, and as a couple, there are certain dynamics. So I was like, Satya, where is my charger? I haven't touched it. I don't know. And I'm like, Of course, I wouldn't lose my charger. Of course you lost it. Start finding. So Satya was, of course, sweating because he knows how...
When something is lost, usually I start sweating because...
So he started believing, oh, maybe I did, and he started searching the charger all around the house. We couldn't find it. I was already really upset. I was like, whoof, super hot. And I went into my side of my bed and I found the charger next to my bed, in my side. So it was my fault. So I said, oh, I found the charger. It was my mistake. I lost it. And immediately I went on and relaxed. So Satyadev asked, how many seconds did it took you to forgive yourself for that? And I said, immediate, because of course I have to be nice with myself. I had to let it go. And he said again, this beautiful equation. He said, and would have been, in English, hubiera sido lo mismo.
Would it have been the same?
The same if I had lost your charger and I would have given to you. And the answer probably would not have been yes, seconds. No, probably a few days.
No.
A few ice creams. And then, so it is just a certain strategy that we can have in our minds, so we can truly think that patience is something that is valuable for us, and everyone else around us deserves that space to make mistakes.
That's actually a great point that Satyabhama brings up here, because one attitude that we cultivate in yoga is called Atma Bhav, and that means the other is not another person, the other is my own self. So if you can really at least pretend to see the other in your... Some beings which are very evolved really see others as their own self. If you cannot see it, at least we can believe that the teachings are true and act like that. Just pretend. If you can't make it, fake it is the teaching also in yoga. Just think the other is my own self. So in that moment when you feel like that, then it's much more easy to be patient, to be tolerant. So that's actually something that we can...
So patience is a muscle that we're going to start building the moment we decide, we make a conscious decision of not replying in the same way that we have always been doing. So it is just something very huge, briefly shared, but as an invitation to become aware that irritability is poison for ourselves, and we shouldn't allow that, because as the Dalai Lama says, you think that anger it's a weapon, or it's the punishment someone else deserves for their mistakes, but it's actually just poison that you're drinking, and it's not good for you, it's not good for the others. But patience, it's something very important. When someone has a lot of virtues, example, a lot of patience, that someone shines, and it's like a flower that attracts so many bees. You always want to be surrounded by people that are patient, happy, compassionate. Those are the kind of people that you're always looking for. So cultivate that within you, and understand that others have also some space to make mistakes the same way as we always do mistakes. So it is just a very short teaching about anger. Long way to go, but at least to have that understanding, create my own strategies from now on to cultivate the opposite virtue of that horrible inner demon of anger that sometimes could arise.
There's one thing that is very practical that we can do when we go home and to start working. Swami Sivananda says, as we said, ideally don't express anger if it's there, but he says you can supplement the energy. So whenever you feel I cannot handle the anger, I will explode, and you cannot really control it, then leave the place. This is something very important. And give the energy behind the anger some expression, a positive expression. Give it another challenge, another channel of expression. For example, chant some mantras, a walk, do some running, swim, take a shower, do some sun salutation. So express that energy in a positive way. This is one thing that is good to remember. He says basically three things when he speaks about anger, like for immediate survival. He says, Reduce intensity. Work on that. Reduce the intensity of your anger. For example, if you're used to kind of throw plates to your couple and you cannot manage to control that, then start throwing flowers on the person. Oh, I don't like you.
Or clothes.
Or clothes. So you reduce intensity. Reduce intensity. Then he says, reduce the duration. Duration. Don't allow the anger to sit there for days, weeks, years. It shouldn't become a resentment. A sign of spiritual evolution means that if there's an anger, it's there. You have maybe a minute in your heart, and then you let it go. You just let it go, because it doesn't serve you. And the way to do that can just be what Satyabhama is teaching right now. She said, cultivate patience. So whenever there's anger, sit for a moment, and then when it's still there, repeat, on patience, on patience, on patience. Invoke the positive virtue, which opposes anger. And then he says also, reduce the frequency. This is the third one. So, intensity, down. Duration, bring it down by cultivating the opposite. And third, he teaches, reduce the frequency. And here a great tool that Swami Sivananda advises is to have a spiritual diary.
A spiritual practice.
A spiritual practice. And then every night, go over the day. How many times did I get angry? 99 times today. Okay. It's not so good. So next week, you do better. Pray to God. God, allow me to be more patient with my boss, with my mother-in-law. So then next time you tend to be irritable when that person comes to you, then remember, oh, I have to write this down tonight in my spiritual diary. And you don't like that. The mind doesn't like that because you want to be a yogi. So you control yourself and repeat Om Shanti, Om Shanti. So you get better. Next week, 53. Better. Improvement. So slowly, it will be better and better and better.
A very accurate statistics of in our personal life is the more drama we have in our life and the more craziness in our emotional field is the more disconnected we are from our true essence. So it means we need more sadhana. Like it's like going to the doctor, but closing the eyes and just, why am I so angry? Why am I so irritable? Why am I so impatient these days? Oh yes, I have missed my meditation. Oh yes, I have shortened the time of meditation, or I have not been doing my asanas, or I have been missing my prayer, my satsang, my church, or those special moments that really brings you closer to your true essence. And that's a good way to understand and to go deep within, because the more we go deep within and we touch base to what's real, the more aligned and balanced we will be. And that's for sure. How do you feel after finishing a yoga class? Do you feel like fighting, arguing? No, you just feel at peace. You want to hug everyone. You are peace and love. So that means that it works. So the more we do it, the more harmony we will create in our lives. So that's important.
And one of the most powerful tools that yoga provides is satsang, what we're doing right now. Being in company of people that strive to be patient at least. Ideally being surrounded by people that are spiritually evolved, like yogis, sages, that would be ideal, but at least in communities that strive and that connect to that kind of energy, of peace, of love, of compassion. And there's a last little story I would like to share. Can I do it?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, not approved. So the story is about there was once a king, and the king someday decided, the king had advisors, and someday, and the advisors were ministers, very good looking and very elegant ministers, and someday he decided, no, I want to fire them. I mean, not really fire, but I want to replace them. So he now put a lot of sages, yogis, to be his new advisors. Then, of course, the ministers didn't like that at all. So they went to the supreme emperor and told him, the king got crazy. He went crazy now. All the yogis are his advisors, and we are without any job. So this is not okay. And please invite your king and tell him. So he invited the king and asked the king, king, why did you do that? This is not okay. And the king said, well, let's do an experiment. Why don't you invite all your ministers to your palace and also invite all the yogis to your palace? You invite them all to sleep. They all will sleep in certain rooms. And then in the middle of the night, you will go to each room and throw cold water on the person that is lying there. And then see what happens. So the king is doing that. The emperor is doing that. In the morning, they're all sleeping, all the ministers and all the yogis are lying there, sleeping. Then the door opens. First, the emperor goes to all the ministers. And then he throws the water onto their face. And they wake up. You stupid person, what are you doing? Are you crazy? And any kind of insult coming out. I don't want to give you the examples, you can think for yourself. Are you crazy? You stupid person, like that. And like that it goes on and on and on. And then he comes to the yogis. So open the door, throws the water onto the face, and then the first person, Om Namah Shivaya. Second person, Om Namo Narayana. God bless you, like that. And so this is the experience. And then the king tells him, now you know why I am surrounded by the yogis and not by those people. Because of course this is a different impact on us. It will also help us to become more and more patient. And
potentially we can reply on Namah Shivaya in an ideal world.
Of course, yeah. But the more we are surrounded by these kind of energies and people, the more we can also train that muscle, because it will inspire us more and more. We can live up to that because this is our potential, right? So, Om Namah Shivaya.
Okay, so